So, today we're diving into Gabriel Wyner's Fluent Forever. It's a system that promises a much smarter, more brain-friendly way to learn pretty much any language you want.
You know that feeling, right? That awful, frustrating feeling when you're trying to talk to someone, but your brain is just stuck? You're constantly translating every single word from your native language. It's slow, it's exhausting, and honestly, it's the biggest wall between you and real fluency.
And that right there is the exact problem Gabriel Wyner is trying to fix. He basically says that the old ways we were taught, memorizing endless lists of vocabulary, are actually setting us up to fail. We're not building a direct connection to the new language, we're just building this slow, clunky translation bridge in our heads.
Now, Wyner's big breakthrough actually came from a really unexpected place, the opera stage. Yeah, really. As an opera singer, he had to learn new languages fast, and I don't just mean the words, he had to nail the sounds to perform. That kind of pressure forced him to just toss out the old rulebooks and figure out a whole new way to learn. And this gets us to the absolute core philosophy of his entire system. We need to stop learning a language and start acquiring it, just like we did when we were kids. The whole goal is to build the language from the ground up right inside your brain by connecting sounds and images directly to meaning. We've got to cut out that English middleman completely.
Okay, but how in the world do you do that efficiently? It sounds like a lot of work.
Well, that's where technology comes in to help us create what Wyner calls the perfect memory engine. The absolute backbone of this whole method is something called a spaced repetition system, or SRS. Just think of it like a super intelligent flashcard app. The most famous one, and the one Wyner recommends, is a free program called Anki. It uses this clever algorithm to show you a flashcard at the exact moment you're about to forget it. It makes memorization incredibly efficient. The way it works is actually pretty simple, but so powerful. When you get a card right, the software goes, okay, you know this one, and it waits longer before showing it to you again, maybe days, then weeks, then months. But if you struggle, you'll see it again much sooner. This whole process just automates pushing information deep into your long-term memory.
All right, so you've got your memory engine fired up and ready to go. Where do you start? Well, the very first step is totally non-negotiable. You have to master the sounds of the language.
Wyner calls this avoiding the accent trap. Think about it. If you can't actually hear the difference between two new sounds, your brain is just going to encode words the wrong way. And once that's locked in, man, it is so hard to fix later on. Getting the pronunciation right from day one is the foundation for everything else.
So how do you train your ear for this stuff? You use something called minimal pairs. These are just words that are different by only one single sound, like perro, and that tricky rolled R in perro in Spanish. By making flashcards that literally test you on hearing that tiny difference, you are rewiring your brain to actually perceive these new sounds correctly.
So, once your ears are trained, you are ready to start building up your vocabulary and grammar. But to do it the right way, there's one golden rule. One rule you absolutely cannot break. No English allowed.
This is the old way. This is the enemy. A flashcard with dog on one side and perro on the other, all that does is reinforce that bad habit of translating in your head. It's the bottleneck we're trying to get rid of. Now, the Fluent Forever way is totally different, and honestly, this is where it gets really fun. The front of your flashcard is just a picture, and the more personal that picture is, the better. A photo of your dog is way more memorable than some generic clip art. Then, the back has the foreign word and a recording of a native speaker saying it. This forges that direct, personal link between the idea and the new word. But which words do you start with? I mean, there are millions of them, right? Well, instead of just random vocabulary, you start with the most common ones. Wyner gives you a list of 625 high-frequency words that give you this amazing, solid core that you can then build everything else on.
And that same no English rule applies to grammar too. So forget trying to memorize those abstract conjugation tables and complicated rules out of context. The goal here is to absorb grammar naturally by just recognizing the patterns.
And you do this with sentence cards that have a fill in the blank. In his German example, you're learning the accusative case. But instead of studying a chart, you just see a picture and a sentence with a missing word. Your brain is forced to remember the pattern in context, which makes grammar start to feel intuitive, not like you're studying for a test.
Okay, so you've built this amazing foundation of sounds, words, and grammar patterns. Now, it's time to actually use it. It's time to create a feedback loop that will just skyrocket your path to fluency. Here's how this works.
You find a tutor, maybe on a site like Italki. Your only goal in the session is to try to use the words and grammar you already have in your head. And you're going to make mistakes. That's the whole point. The tutor's job is to give you corrections as complete, natural sentences. Then, after the session, your job is to turn those corrections into new flashcards. Wyner calls this mistake mining, and it turns your own personal errors into the absolute best learning material you could ever ask for.
So we've covered all the individual pieces. Let's put them all together now and see what the full journey to fluency really looks like.
The path is actually a really clear, structured sequence. You start with just a couple of weeks dedicated only to mastering the sounds. Then you move on to building your core vocabulary with those image cards. After that, you learn grammar through sentences. And from that point on, it's all about mining every conversation, every book, every movie for new material to feed into your memory engine.
So what this all means is that you now have a complete toolkit. You've got spaced repetition with Anki software. You've got the specific types of flashcards for sounds, for words, and for grammar that let you build a language directly inside your brain.
Which really just leaves us with one last question. Look, this method takes effort, for sure, but it's a focused, intelligent effort that gets real results. So, are you ready to stop translating in your head? Are you ready to finally build a language, not just memorize one?